Hey there adventurers, my name is Derek and this is Elven Tower Adventures. Today we are starting strong with a map for a Dungeons & Dragons adventure that will appear in brochure format. I am illustrating this as I go, and as you saw from the beginning of the video, I am working with fineliners, sharpie markers and some highlighters. I am also using graph paper that I printed at home. However, for the next map I do like this, I'm probably gonna take a different way of doing it. I went to the office supply store the other day and I saw that they sold graph paper like what I'm using right now, but they also sold a different kind of graph paper that doesn't have all the squares, but only the dots in the middle. I think that's going to work better because when I'm scanning these finished pieces, I always have to clean it up in Photoshop and it takes a lot of time. So like I mentioned before, this map is going to appear in a brochure format adventure, and since it's going to appear in the second panel of the brochure, it needs a vertical aspect ratio for it to fit. So that's what I'm doing here. It's positioned horizontally on my drawing desk, but in the end it's going to be a vertical illustration. The first thing I did for this illustration was to draw a ton of water canals that interconnect the different areas of the dungeon. That's done now. So now I'm using a wider Sharpie marker to make the walls of the rooms. The location of the rooms, how the hallways interconnect them, the water canals, they seem to not make a lot of sense. However, this was done on purpose. I'll talk about the lore of this place later, but the gist of it is that this is a form of vault. Something very valuable is stored in this place, so it's meant to confuse visitors who try to rob its riches. In addition, several clues in the dungeon actually point to a room that is actually a fake vault. The actual treasure chamber, the Fabled Armory, is the chamber located in the upper left corner of this map as it is shown in this video. This secret dungeon contains the Fabled Armory of Lord Armand On. He passed away of old age around a decade ago, but during his prime he was known for his combat prowess. Rumor has it that Lord Armand On liked to train combat forms and technique in water. He would brave thunderstorms or the strong pull of a river while brandishing a blade and trying to slash raindrops. Later in life, Lord Armand became a weapons collector. With his notorious wealth, he would become the patron of many adventuring parties. He would pay them to visit legendary places and retrieve marvelous weapons for his collection. It is known that his two favorite weapons in the collection were the Axe of Dreams and the Blade of On. The legend says that if a creature is wounded by the Axe of Dreams, the wielder can see and perceive the true desires of the creature wounded. On the other hand, the magical properties of the Blade of On remain unknown. But what is known is that Lord Armand On never lost a duel while wielding this blade. In modern tales, the peasantry claims that the soul of Lord Armand is stored in the blade, and whoever wields it shall never lose a duel again. Until they pass on, that is. The characters reach the room I am illustrating now, the fake vault, after traversing a hallway with a poison darts trap. The presence of the deadly trap and the fact that the door is locked with a high-quality clockwork device is meant to fool trespassers into thinking that they have found what they came for. But if that does not convince them that they have gotten what this place has to offer, there is this room I illustrate now, the fake armory. Hanging on the walls, piled or placed on racks, there are dozens of weapons here. Many of these items are of great quality, however they are guarded by 3 statues in the chamber that come alive to protect the contents of this room. These cursed gargoyles fight until they are destroyed. Alas, the character's presence in this fake armory threatens the location of the real armory, which lies beyond a secret door. Afraid that his real armory may be found, the spirit of Lord On himself, as a wraith, appears and attacks the intruders without saying a word. There is a secret door behind the third gargoyle. It leads to the Fabled Armory. This room features a smaller collection of high-quality weapons and armor. The legendary Axe of Dreams and the Blade of On are here. As expected, both hold magical properties that shall help the heroes achieve their goals. By this point, I've already finished illustrating the different contents of these chambers. With nothing more to add, like furnishings or statues or canals, I can illustrate the stone slabs of the floor. In the final version of this map, I didn't specify a scale for the squares. There is an implied scale, the base for D&D, which is 5 feet per square, but one could easily double the scale to 10 feet per square and the dungeon would still make sense. You would only have to imagine that the different furnishing pieces are just exaggerated in size for readability. If you are using a dungeon crawling system that goes hard with the procedures for exploring different rooms, the larger scale of 10 feet per square would make more sense. Otherwise, it is a little bit too cramped, especially for battles. Some people don't like that, and that's fair, but as we talked about in the first issue of our free newsletter, the Elven Epistle, which is about dungeon design, in many cases it makes sense that places are cramped. This is not supposed to be a place where having big fights is an easy thing to do. One could argue that it even makes more sense that fights are cramped because this place is meant to be defended. You wouldn't want to make it easy for trespassers to fight your guardians in your dungeon, or would you? And so, with the dungeon interiors all finished, now we do the hatching for the outside of the dungeon. As it is commonplace for dungeons which are located underground, we have to find a way to differentiate or create a contrast between the inside areas and the outside areas which you cannot visit because it's usually just stone. So what we're trying to do is to create a repeatable pattern that looks cool but also doesn't attract too much attention from other parts of the map which are more important. When I was doing this part, I was really thinking about not adding the hatching pattern to the water canals that are outside of the dungeon. But in the end, I really felt like it wasn't really fitting the image of this map. Something that really got me thinking while illustrating this map is that I took too big of a risk when I started drawing the water canals at the beginning. Some of the lines are certainly not straight or not straight enough for my own standards. Going back to basics and illustrating with fineliners and graph paper has this disadvantage that if you make a mistake, there's no way around it. It's just how it's going to be unless you want to start again. I could have fixed some of that mess later in Photoshop, however I decided not to. Next time around when I do a map like this again, maybe next month, I'll be more careful and see if I learned a thing or two from this one. By the way, if you like this content, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and perhaps, maybe later we could roll a persuasion check to convince you to check out our Patreon page. This illustration is pretty much done. Here I am using a green highlighter just to add some color to the upper and left side of the walls. It's something I did with previous illustrations and I really liked the result. After this, I'm also going to use a blue one for the water canals and an orange one for some of the braziers that are in some of the rooms. However, a word of caution if you try to do this at home. Some of these highlighters wash out the ink from all the other stuff that you have on the page. I think it doesn't react that well with the black sharpie that I used for the walls. So you have to move fast and try to not remain in the same place for a long time, or else you get a stain on the page. After the illustration was finished on the graph paper, I brought it to a supply store to get it scanned. This is how that looked. And then after some cleaning up work in Photoshop, this is how the final version with labels looks. It's a lot better, isn't it? However, do take into account that I could have fixed the not so straight lines, but I didn't, because I like to hold myself accountable for my mistakes. The brochure adventure is not available online by the time I post this video, but this is the layout and how it looks on the page with the final version of the map and the writing and everything that comes with it. If you got this far, thank you for watching. We would appreciate if you give us a follow here on YouTube and perhaps leave a comment down below. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Derek and this is Elven Tower Adventures.